I had a little help. We made quite a team, didn't we, Marion?
We really did. We certainly did, Adam.
Pernell Roberts was the star who never played by Hollywood's rules. He challenged producers, defied scripts, and walked away from one of the biggest shows on television at the height of its success. Fans admired his talent, but behind the scenes, he carried a reputation that made him one of the most complicated actors of his era. He clashed with co-stars, built a long list of feuds, and often found himself in people's bad books. Yet even those battles were nothing compared to the turmoil in his personal life, where several painful divorces, including one that changed him forever, left the deepest scars. Pernell Roberts' rise to fame. Pernell Roberts became one of television's most memorable faces, known for his commanding presence, sharp intelligence, and the grounded seriousness he brought to every role. Audiences admired him, critics respected him, and his work on Bonanza secured his place as a TV legend. But behind that respect was a reputation that followed him everywhere. Roberts was brilliant, but he was also considered extremely difficult. And in the middle of all the tension, success, and constant battles over creative control, there was one person he quietly disliked more than anyone else. Born Pernell Elvin Roberts Jr. on May 18, 1928, in Waycross, Georgia, he grew up in a working-class household where nothing came easily. His father, Pernell Sr., worked in sales, while his mother, Minnie Myrtle Morgan Roberts, held the family together at home. Life in rural Georgia wasn't glamorous, but it shaped the grounded, no-nonsense personality that would follow him into every role and every public dispute later in his career. As a teenager, Roberts didn't seem destined for acting. He was talented, intelligent, and restless, but he didn't have a clear direction. He enrolled at Georgia Tech, hoping to find a path, but it didn't fit him. He eventually dropped out, and later tried again by studying drama at the University of Maryland. Even there, he didn't finish his degree. What he did discover, however, was the stage. Performing felt real to him in a way traditional schooling didn't, and that realization would become the turning point of his life. Before acting became steady, Roberts worked a long list of jobs, most of them physically demanding. He spent time as a butcher, a forest ranger, and even a railroad riveter. These early experiences gave him discipline and a rugged, grounded presence that audiences would later associate with his characters. His acting career began in regional theater, where he took any opportunity he could find. He performed Shakespeare, learned the craft from the ground up, and built a reputation as someone who took the work seriously. Roberts eventually joined Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., one of the most respected regional theaters in the country. It was here that he truly found his voice, literally and figuratively. His deep, commanding baritone, combined with the intensity he brought to every role, made him stand out immediately. Broadway soon took notice. Roberts appeared in productions like The Lovers and The Taming of the Shrew, earning praise for his presence, timing, and ability to dominate a stage without overwhelming it. Critics respected him, actors admired him, and directors saw in him a bold, serious, and uncompromising kind of performer. His career changed completely in 1959 when he stepped into television and was cast as Adam Cartwright in the new NBC Western Bonanza. The show followed the Cartwright family on their Nevada ranch, and the smart, steady, and intense character of Adam fit Roberts perfectly. His stage training translated naturally to the new medium. He brought depth to his scenes, authority to his dialogue, and a grounded energy that helped balance the show's big personalities. Bonanza wasn't expected to become the hit it eventually became. Yet within a few seasons, It climbed to the top of television ratings and stayed there. Roberts found himself becoming a household name, recognized everywhere he went. Audiences loved Adam Cartwright, the serious, responsible brother who anchored the family. His rise was quick, dramatic, and unexpected. After years of working small jobs, taking every theater role he could find, and slowly building his reputation on stage, television fame arrived almost overnight. Roberts suddenly had the stability that had been missing for years and the platform that most actors only dream about. He had become one of the most prominent faces of one of the biggest shows in TV history. But behind the scenes, something else was growing, and this would eventually change everything. Pernell Roberts wasn't satisfied. The very show that made him famous also triggered disagreements, principles, and frustrations that pushed him further away each season. And eventually, those frustrations would erupt into one of the most controversial departures television had ever seen. Controversial exit from Bonanza. When Bonanza premiered in 1959, no one expected it to become one of the longest-running and most successful westerns in television history. The show lasted 14 seasons, dominated ratings, and turned its cast into major stars. Pernell Roberts, who played Adam Cartwright, appeared in 202 episodes from 1959 to 1965, becoming one of the key pillars of the family dynamic. To the audience, he looked completely at home on the Ponderosa. But behind the scenes, Roberts felt something different. As the show became more successful, he became more vocal about the parts he felt weren't working. He believed the writing often leaned toward what he called simple-minded storytelling, plots that were too easy, resolutions that felt unrealistic, and character choices that didn't reflect genuine human behavior. Roberts came from a strong stage background where scripts were layered, challenging, and emotionally rich. Moving into a show where episodes wrapped up neatly at the end of every hour frustrated him deeply. His biggest issue was how Adam Cartwright was written. Roberts wanted a character with depth, someone who questioned things, grew over time, and didn't follow predictable patterns. Instead, he felt Adam was kept one-dimensional, stuck in a role that rarely allowed for complexity. Roberts believed a Western set in the 1860s could explore real themes, such as social issues, moral conflicts, and the hardship of the era. But the show rarely went in that direction. Over time, he became known for openly challenging the creative team about the scripts. Roberts clashed repeatedly with producers and writers, questioning decisions that he felt weakened the show's integrity. He wasn't trying to be difficult, he simply believed the series wasn't living up to its potential. But in a television environment that valued stability and formula, his pushback caused tension. To producers, Roberts seemed uncooperative. To Roberts, the show was wasting opportunities. And that gap kept widening, season after season. By 1965, the situation reached its breaking point. Roberts no longer felt creatively fulfilled, and he saw no path forward where the character would evolve into something richer. He also worried about typecasting, a major problem for actors on long-running series. Playing Adam Cartwright for so many years risked locking him into the same kind of role for the rest of his career, something he felt would limit him long-term. After 6 seasons and constant battles over writing and character development, he made the decision that stunned fans and the industry alike. Pernell Roberts walked away from Bonanza. His exit shocked viewers who considered him an essential part of the show's appeal. Adam was the calm center of the Cartwright brothers, the one who balanced the humor of Hoss and the fiery energy of Little Joe. Fans couldn't imagine the series without him. NBC tried to adjust by adding new cast members and shifting storylines. but the absence was noticeable. Roberts became known as the only Cartwright son to leave the Ponderosa, a choice that made him both admired and criticized. For Roberts, the decision wasn't about rebellion or ego. It was about wanting more as an actor. He believed strongly in artistic integrity, and walking away from one of the most popular shows on television was the only way he could regain control of his career. It wasn't an easy choice, and it came with consequences, but it shaped the rest of his life and the legacy he left behind. And while his exit made headlines, the real story grew even more complicated when people learned who Pernell Roberts clashed with behind the scenes, and just how tense some of those relationships became. The actors he clashed with. Pernell Roberts was known for his talent, discipline, and strong sense of artistic integrity. But those same qualities created friction with several of his co-stars. He wasn't the type to stay quiet when something bothered him, and he had no interest in pretending everything behind the scenes was perfect. To Roberts, the quality of the work mattered above everything else, even if speaking up made him unpopular. And on the set of Bonanza, his outspoken nature led to tensions with some of the show's biggest names. His most well-known conflict was with Michael Landon, who played Little Joe Cartwright. Landon was energetic, influential, and increasingly involved in the writing process as the show grew more successful. Roberts felt that Landon's creative decisions oversimplified the storylines and leaned too heavily into sentimentality. He believed the scripts lacked depth and didn't reflect authentic struggles of the era. The more Landon's influence grew, the louder Roberts became in challenging it. Although the tension was mostly professional, it eventually spilled into public comments. After Roberts left the show, Landon occasionally joked about his departure, framing it as Roberts walking away from a good thing. Landon's comments weren't malicious, but they highlighted how difficult the relationship had been. Roberts also experienced strain with Dan Blocker, who played the beloved Hoss Cartwright. Blocker was generally easygoing and didn't involve himself deeply in creative arguments, but that didn't prevent occasional friction. He often found himself stuck between Roberts's push for change and the rest of the cast's desire to maintain stability. While Blocker didn't share Roberts's frustrations, he sometimes grew tired of the constant questioning and tension. Still, their disagreements never reached the intensity of the conflicts Roberts had with others. Blocker understood Roberts's passion. He just didn't always agree with it. The most complicated relationship Roberts had was with Lorne Greene, the actor who played Ben Cartwright, the patriarch of the family. Greene was calm, diplomatic, and well-liked, but Roberts struggled with how the character was written. He believed Ben Cartwright was portrayed as overly flawless, too saint-like, and lacking the complexity that a real father in the Old West would have faced. Roberts even referred to Greene's fatherly role as too simplistic, a comment that didn't sit well with Greene or the producers. To Roberts, it wasn't personal. He simply wanted more realism. But to Greene, it felt like a criticism of his work and the foundation of the show's family dynamic. Their disagreements were persistent, and although the two respected each other professionally, they often saw the series through completely different lenses. Beyond the main cast of Bonanza, Roberts also had conflicts with other actors in the industry. He reportedly clashed with stars like Chuck Connors and James Drury, both prominent names in the Western genre. These disagreements usually stemmed from Roberts's insistence on high standards. He didn't tolerate scripts he considered weak, performances he thought were lazy, or decisions that prioritized ratings over substance. This pattern shaped his reputation in Hollywood. Some people admired his dedication and respected him for refusing to compromise his principles. Others found him difficult to work with, describing him as stubborn, demanding, or overly serious. In truth, Roberts was both. He was principled, but he also held expectations that not everyone shared. To him, acting wasn't simply a job. It was a craft that deserved honesty and depth. And he wasn't afraid to speak out when he felt the work fell short. Despite the tension, many cast members later acknowledged that Roberts had a point. Bonanza was designed to be broad, family-friendly entertainment, and it wasn't always realistic. Yet, walking away from one of the biggest shows of the era was only the beginning. Roberts had built his name through Bonanza, but the moment he stepped off the set, he faced a new challenge: rebuilding a career outside the shadow of Adam Cartwright. The years that followed were filled with unexpected choices, new roles, and a journey that made his story far more complex than anyone expected. Life after Bonanza. Leaving Bonanza was a bold move, and many people believed Pernell Roberts was making a mistake that would cost him his career. But once he stepped away from the Ponderosa, he didn't slow down. Instead, he rebuilt himself as a working actor who refused to be boxed in by a single role. The years after Bonanza became a long, unpredictable journey, filled with guest roles, major successes, activism, personal battles, and the health struggles that marked the end of his life. Roberts didn't disappear from television after leaving the show. He spent the next decade proving he could handle a wide range of characters, and he did it by appearing in more than 60 television series. These weren't small, forgettable shows. They were some of the biggest series of the era. He guest-starred on The Virginian, Hawaii Five-0, Marcus Welby, MD, Ironside, Mission Impossible, and many more. Each role allowed him to showcase a side of himself that Bonanza never fully used. He played detectives, doctors, soldiers, and villains, demonstrating the versatility that had originally brought him recognition on stage. Producers who hired him often said that Roberts elevated every scene he appeared in. He was disciplined, serious, and committed to the craft. But he also carried a reputation from his years on Bonanza that followed him into every new project. Industry insiders labeled him as difficult, not because he misbehaved or disrupted sets, but because he demanded strong scripts and refused to accept lazy writing. In an industry built on formulas and tight schedules, his standards made some producers hesitant. They knew he wasn't afraid to speak up, and not everyone wanted to deal with that. As a result, even though Roberts was talented, he sometimes lost roles simply because people didn't want to risk a clash. Despite the obstacles, he eventually found the role that would define the second half of his career. In 1979, Roberts was cast as Chief Surgeon Dr. John McIntyre in the medical drama Trapper John, M.D. The show followed the character decades after the events of MASH, reimagining him as a seasoned, respected surgeon working at a busy San Francisco hospital. The series ran for 7 seasons, from 1979 to 1986, and became one of Roberts's biggest successes. Unlike Bonanza, Trapper John, MD offered him everything he had always wanted: a grounded character, meaningful storylines, and scripts with emotional depth. Roberts brought gravitas to the role, portraying McIntyre as a dedicated doctor who combined experience with compassion. Viewers loved him in the part, and critics praised the show for its sharp writing and steady tone. For Roberts, it was validation, proof that leaving Bonanza hadn't ended his career, but simply led him to a better fit. Away from acting, Roberts was deeply involved in activism, something he cared about long before he became famous. He was a vocal supporter of the civil rights movement and even marched with Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s. He openly criticized Hollywood's lack of diversity and the limited roles offered to minority actors. Roberts didn't just talk about these issues, he confronted them. His willingness to speak out often made studios uncomfortable, especially at a time when Hollywood preferred actors who stayed quiet about social issues. But Roberts didn't care about being convenient. He cared about being honest, and he believed the industry needed to change. His activism extended far beyond race. He challenged unfair labor practices, spoke about the rights of stage actors, and frequently supported organizations pushing for more inclusive casting. To him, art and social responsibility were connected. He wasn't simply an actor. He was someone who believed the industry had the power to improve society, and he wanted to see it used that way. Sadly, in his later years, Roberts faced serious health issues. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a disease that progresses quickly and aggressively. Even while dealing with the illness, he remained private about his condition. The man who had once challenged Hollywood's biggest studios chose to face his final battle quietly, surrounded by the people closest to him. His health declined steadily, and on January 24, 2010, Pernell Roberts died at his home in Malibu, California, at the age of 81. His death marked the end of one of television's most complex careers. He had been a stage actor, a Western hero, a medical drama lead, and a passionate activist. He never compromised on his principles, even when it cost him roles or damaged his reputation. Roberts was remembered by colleagues as someone who was honest to a fault, driven by a belief that storytelling mattered, and determined to live his career on his own terms. And while his professional journey was complicated, his personal life was no less dramatic. Pernell Roberts navigated marriages, affairs, heartbreaks, and the emotional fallout of fame, stories that rarely made headlines but shaped the man behind the performances. Turbulent love life. Pernell Roberts' personal life was just as complicated as his professional one. Behind the confidence and intensity he carried on screen were relationships that shifted through long periods of ambition, struggle, and constant change. His marriages reflected the different stages of his life, from his early days as an uncertain actor to his final years as a man who had lived through more than most people realized. His first marriage was to Vera Mowry, whom he married in 1951. Vera was a respected college professor of theater history, teaching at Washington State University and later at Hunter College in New York. She was intellectual, grounded, and deeply invested in the arts, qualities that drew Roberts to her at a time when he was still finding his direction. Together, they had one son, and for a few years they built a life based on academic work, art, and the excitement of Roberts' rising stage career. But as Roberts' ambitions grew, their marriage began to strain. The long hours, constant rehearsals, and the uncertainty of acting created tension between them. Reports from the time suggest the couple struggled with career pressures and personal differences, difficulties that became harder to ignore as Roberts moved deeper into professional acting. By 1959, they divorced, each moving forward into very different worlds. Vera remained in academia, while Roberts headed toward the television fame that would make him a household name. After his break from Bonanza, Roberts lived a quieter personal life for several years before marrying Cara Nack in 1972. Cara was heavily involved in environmental activism and conservation work, a cause Roberts admired and supported. Their marriage lasted more than 2 decades, one of the longest and most stable relationships of his adult life. During these years, Roberts worked consistently in television, continued his activism, and stayed outspoken about the issues he cared about. But long marriages often carry long-term challenges, and Roberts and Nack were no exception. Over time, the differences in their work, pace of life, and personal directions began to widen. By 1996, after more than 20 years together, they divorced. Despite the length of their marriage, they kept details of their split private. Those who knew them said the separation wasn't explosive. It was simply the result of two people moving in different directions after decades of trying to balance their worlds. Roberts got married again the following year, this time to Eleanor Criswell, a psychologist and educator known for her work in somatic psychology and wellness practices. Eleanor brought a calm, stabilizing presence into his life. By the time they married in 1997, Roberts had already lived through the highs and lows of fame, career reinvention, and public criticism. With Eleanor, he entered a quieter chapter focused on stability, health, and the quieter routines that suited him in his later years. Their marriage lasted until Roberts's death in 2010, and those close to them described their relationship as supportive and steady. Eleanor accompanied him through his final years, including his battle with pancreatic cancer. After decades marked by intense work schedules, industry conflicts, and the emotional weight of his public reputation, Roberts seemed to find a peaceful home life that allowed him to withdraw from the spotlight when he needed to. But the story of Pernell Roberts's personal life isn't complete without one of the most complicated chapters: his earlier marriage to Judith Anna Lebrecq, which took place between Vera Mowry and Cara Knack. While it received less public attention than his other marriages, it became one of the most turbulent periods of his private world. Reports from colleagues and friends suggested the relationship carried more tension and conflict than any of his others, creating strain that followed Roberts both personally and professionally. Yet, it remains one of the least discussed parts of his biography. Toxic Divorce, from Judith Anna Lebrecq. Before Pernell Roberts became known for his intensity and unwillingness to bend to industry pressure, he entered a marriage that would eventually expose the same qualities in his personal life. Judith Anna Lebrecq was an actress with small roles in television and theater. She was known within Hollywood circles, but never reached the fame Roberts achieved on television. What she did share with him, however, was a strong artistic drive. That shared ambition is what brought them together in the first place. They likely met through industry connections sometime in the early 1960s, during the period when Roberts was rising quickly on Bonanza. His presence on the show had already begun making him a recognizable figure, and the entertainment community around him was expanding. Judith moved in similar artistic spaces, and the two connected over their passion for acting, theater, and the meaning they believed storytelling should hold. Their relationship began quickly, full of excitement, creative conversations, and a sense of partnership that felt natural to both of them. It was the kind of whirlwind romance that fit the Hollywood backdrop around them. Roberts and Lebrecq tied the knot on October 15, 1962, during the height of Bonanza's popularity. In the beginning, their marriage seemed stable. Judith supported Roberts' career, understanding the demands and expectations placed on him as one of the leads on a top-rated show. The couple lived under the same intense spotlight that surrounded Bonanza, and at first, they managed the pressure well. With Roberts working constantly and Judith maintaining her own acting pursuits, the early years appeared functional, if not entirely calm. But cracks began to form beneath that surface. Roberts's outspoken personality, which was already causing friction on set, often carried into his home life. His growing dissatisfaction with the simple-minded scripts on Bonanza and the creative battles he fought behind the scenes didn't stay compartmentalized. He took his frustrations home, and those closest to him began to feel the strain. Judith, who admired his talent but didn't share his uncompromising approach, reportedly struggled with the intensity he brought to everything. Roberts had high expectations, both for himself and for those around him. While this made him a strong performer, it also created tension at home. Judith wanted a balance between artistic passion and everyday stability, but Roberts was consumed by his desire for authenticity in his work. Arguments grew more frequent, centered on priorities. Roberts pushed for creative integrity, while Judith emphasized financial stability and household harmony. By the late 60s, their marriage was unraveling. Roberts's frustration with Bonanza was reaching a peak, and his personal life mirrored that chaos. Those around them described their relationship during this period as volatile. Roberts felt Judith didn't fully understand or support the battles he was fighting professionally, while Judith felt overwhelmed by his emotional distance and career-driven tunnel vision. Their divorce in 1971 marked one of the most difficult periods in Roberts's personal life. Although the details were kept mostly private, reports from people close to the couple described it as bitter and exhausting. Judith reportedly accused Roberts of being emotionally distant and controlling, traits that aligned with the reputation he was building in Hollywood. Roberts, in response, reportedly believed Judith never supported his artistic struggles or understood the principles he wasn't willing to surrender. The end of their marriage didn't bring immediate clarity or calm. Judith faded from public view not long after the divorce, stepping away from acting and the Hollywood environment entirely. Roberts, meanwhile, remarried quickly to Cara Nack in 1972. This divorce also added to the controversial image Roberts carried throughout his career. The image of a man who demanded a level of artistic and emotional honesty that not everyone could handle. To some, he was brilliant and principled. To others, he was stubborn and overly intense. The split from Judith reinforced those perceptions. Friends and colleagues noted that Roberts's refusal to compromise in his marriage reflected the same refusal he showed on set, in contract negotiations, and in battles over writing. Whether in work or love, Roberts stuck to his beliefs even when it cost him relationships. Judith's departure marked the end of one of the most chaotic chapters of his life. It was a relationship shaped by passion, conflict, and two very different visions of what a marriage should be. For Roberts, the divorce became a turning point that shaped how people saw him, not just as an actor with strict standards, but as someone whose personal life carried the same level of intensity as his career. Do you think Roberts' strict standards contributed to his divorce from Judith? Drop your answers in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.